responsibility that goes beyond Mr. Barr's conclusion, a responsibility to decide that this offensive use of military force, even for good purpose, good humanitarian purpose, is one that requires the authorization of the American people through their members of Congress. Mr. President, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Without objection.
I now ask unanimous consent that we have a period of morning business, and that, in fact, it be closed. I ask consent that the period of morning business be closed, and the Senate resume consideration. Motion proceed to number 75S679.
Without objection, morning business is closed.
Mr. President, I have a cloture motion.
The motion to proceed is resumed.
I have a cloture motion at the desk and ask the clerk to report the same.
The clerk will report the cloture motion.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, hereby move to bring to a close the debate on the motion to proceed to calendar number 75S679, the Presidential Appointment Efficiency and Streamlining Act of 2011, signed by 17 senators as follows.
Mr. President, I ask consent that the names not be read.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I'm disappointed that we had to file cloture again. I would hope, though, in the ensuing days that the Republicans on the other side will just let us get on this bill. This is a bill that Senator McConnell and I started working on when we were both whips many years ago. The purpose of the bill is to eliminate the need to have all these nominations to these relatively minor posts confirmed by the Senate. And the work done by the chairman and ranking member of the Budget Committee, Senator Schumer, Senator Alexander, has been exemplary. We now will have, when this legislation passes, and I really think it will pass, even if we have to invoke cloture on the motion to proceed and on the bill itself. I hope that's not necessary, but if we do, that's what we'll have to do. It would take away the necessitation of our having to do some 200 nominations for some of these minor posts that I talked about. So I would hope that we can get on this bill when we come back next week. It would be the right thing to do. There's so much to do that this would set the tone of this work period that hasn't been so good to this point. I ask unanimous consent at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, June 21st, 2011, the Senate proceed to executive session. Consider calendar number 34, the nomination of Michael Simon, Oregon, to be a United States District Judge for the District of Oregon. That there be an hour of debate equally divided in usual form. Upon the use or yielding back of that time, the Senate proceed to vote without intervening action or debate on calendar number 34. Following this vote, the Senate recess until 2:15 p.m. for weekly party conferences. That at 2:15 p.m. the Senate consider calendar number 183, Leon E. Panetta, to be the Secretary of Defense for our country. That there be 2 hours of debate equally divided between the two leaders or the designees. Upon the use or yielding back of that time, the Senate proceed to vote with no intervening action or debate on calendar number 183. The motion to reconsider be considered made and laid on the table with no intervening action or debate. That no further motions be in order to the nominations. That these statements related to the nomination be printed in the record. The President be immediately notified of the Senate's action and the Senate then resume legislative session. Further, following this vote, the Senate resume consideration of the EDA bill and vote on the motion to invoke cloture on that bill. If cloture is not invoked, the Senate proceed to vote on the motion to invoke cloture on the motion to proceed to S679, the Presidential Appointment Efficiency and Streamlining Act, finding that the mandatory quorum under Rule 22 be waived on both cloture motions.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that we now proceed to a period of morning business. Senators allowed to speak for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
Not one of the pages.
Mr. President.
Senator from Rhode Island.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that I be allowed to speak for up to 17 minutes.
Without objection. So ordered.
I rise today to speak about a serious issue that touches on our national security, our economic well-being, the safety of our families, and our privacy, and that is America's cyber security. I look forward to conducting an in-depth examination of the aspects of this issue that fall within the Senate Judiciary Committee's jurisdiction during the Subcommittee on Crime and Terrorism's June 21, 2011 hearing, cybersecurity, evaluating the administration's proposals. However, because of the importance of improving our cybersecurity, as demonstrated by the recent Gmail spear phishing attacks and hacks at Sony, Epsilon, Lockheed Martin, and even the Senate here itself, I rise to make some initial remarks today. American technological innovation ushered in the Internet age, bringing with it Facebook, YouTube, and the rest of the World Wide Web. It set off an explosion of new commerce, freedom of expression, and economic opportunity, even in the smallest details of our lives, allowing a car company, for instance, to unlock your car doors remotely if you've locked yourself out of your car. However, this increased connectivity allows criminals, terrorists, and hostile nations to exploit cyberspace, to attack America, to invade our privacy, to loot our intellectual property, and to expose America's core critical infrastructure to cyber sabotage. Entire online communities are dedicated to stealing and selling American credit card numbers. Consider the disturbing fact that the price of your credit card number stolen online actually goes up if the criminal also is selling your mother's maiden name. Some criminals have learned how to spy on Americans, hacking into our home computers and looking out through the video camera attached to the screen. Others run websites selling stolen entertainment without paying the American companies who created it. And millions of American computers have been compromised by malware, slaved to botnets that can record your every keystroke and send it instantaneously across the world to a criminal's laptop. I firmly believe that cybercrime has put our country on the losing end of the largest illicit transfer of wealth in world history. Whether by copying source code, by industrial espionage of military product designs, by identity theft, by online piracy, or by outright old-fashioned stealing from banks, just doing it the electronic way, cybercrime cripples American innovation, kills jobs here at home, and undermines our economic and national security. Congress must act to protect Americans from these Internet dangers and to protect our civil liberties. Let me say at the outset, the government must not be allowed to snoop indiscriminately into our online activity, to read our email, or watch us online. There simply is no need for such an invasion of privacy, and we must move forward with that firmly in mind. The Majority Leader has introduced a leadership bill that will be a vehicle for our work. The Commerce Committee, led by Chairman Rockefeller and Ranking Member Snowe, both of whom I had the privilege to serve with on the Intelligence Committee, and the Homeland Security Committee, led by Chairman Lieberman and Ranking Member Collins, reported key bills last year. Chairman Leahy and the Judiciary Committee have reported important legislation on data breach and other issues central to cybersecurity. The Armed Services, Energy, and other committees have studied the issue from the perspective of their particular jurisdictions and expertise. And under the leadership of Chairman Feinstein, the Intelligence Committee Cybersecurity Task Force completed its classified report last July, authored by me, Senator Mikulski, and Senator Snowe. So we've been ready in Congress. The administration has now weighed in with its own proposal, recognizing that we need cybersecurity legislation to make our nation safer, and launching in earnest our legislative process. We have hard work ahead to find the best possible solution to this complex and grave challenge to our national and economic security. As we begin, I'd like to flag 5 issues that I believe must be addressed as this legislation goes forward. First, we need to build greater public awareness of cybersecurity threats going forward. What's the problem? The problem is that threat information affecting the .gov and the .mil domains, the government domains, is largely classified. And in the .com, .net, and .org domains, threat information is often kept proprietary by the victim business so as not to worry shareholders, customers, and regulators. or give ammunition to competitors. The result is that Americans are left in the dark about the level of danger that is actually out there on the Internet. The administration's proposal would require covered businesses to notify customers if their personal information is stolen, expand reporting of cybersecurity threats, and require some public assessments of cyber readiness. I believe more can still be done on these fronts. I've had the pleasure of working with Senator Kyle to introduce S-931, the Cybersecurity Public Awareness Act, and I would like to urge interested colleagues to review it and consider including it as part of our larger cybersecurity legislation. That's the first. Second, the Senate needs to ensure that we give private industry the tools necessary for self-defense against cyber attacks. Proper sharing among and within industries of cybersecurity threat information is vital. The administration took an important step by recommending, subject to various safeguards, enhanced sharing of cybersecurity threat information by the government with private industry. But we may also need to remove legal impediments that unnecessarily limit the sharing of threat information within industries. And we should be prepared to listen here to the private sector's needs as they set up those areas for safe communication about the cyber threats that they share. Third, our nation does not have basic rules of the road for end users, ISPs, and software and hardware suppliers. The administration proposal includes important provisions that would move us in the right direction, assuming that ISPs, Verizon and Comcast and the companies that are actually providing the service, assuming that these companies qualify as critical infrastructure, which is an assumption we should clarify before getting too far down this path, the administration proposal would require them to develop a standardized framework to address cybersecurity. Sensible laws and regulations have made our highways safe, and we need similarly to make our information highways safe. Federal procurement can encourage effective cybersecurity standards with appropriate supply chain security so as to improve cybersecurity across the hardware and software industries. These improvements will benefit the government directly, but it will also improve the security of all products on which businesses and consumers rely. Americans are too often unaware of dangerous malware that has been surreptitiously inserted into our own computers, and we don't take readily available measures to protect ourselves and those who we link with. One leading ISP, Comcast, deserves great credit for developing a new mechanism to notify and assist its customers when their computers have been compromised by malicious software or botnets. All of the ISPs should work together to join, strengthen, and standardize this program. In Australia, the ISPs have developed a code of conduct that may be a model for their American counterparts in this regard. The fourth point, it is vital that the government have an incident response plan that clearly allocates responsibilities for responding to a major cyber attack or breach. The administration proposal puts the responsibility for such incident response with the Department of Homeland Security Cybersecurity Center envisioned by the proposal. I look forward to working with the administration and my colleagues on that aspect of the proposal. More generally, the administration proposal, like bills that have been reported in the Senate, gives the Department of Homeland Security a leadership role in our nation's cybersecurity. We have to remember that this is a relatively new role for the Department of Homeland Security. It is one of a great many different responsibilities that the Department of Homeland Security bears. And it is a role as to which much of the government's expertise resides in other agencies than the Department of Homeland Security. So the Department of Homeland Security's role must be configured to attract sufficiently high-caliber cybersecurity professionals, to ensure that DHS properly leverages the cybersecurity expertise at those other agencies, and to assure sufficient independence and credibility of the Cybersecurity Center to perform this vital mission even as administrations change and attention to cybersecurity waxes and wanes. Cybersecurity is a real and present danger. So we must also plan for and minimize the interim period in which DHS builds up its cybersecurity expertise, promulgates necessary regulations, and otherwise grows into any new role with which it is tasked. Cyber attacks happen at the speed of light. So the best defense requires that we pre-position some of our defensive capabilities. Many of our nation's leading experts who have seen the dark heart of the Internet's dangers and understand the cyber threat in all its dimensions recommend rapidly creating secure domains for our most critical infrastructure, our electric grid being the most obvious example. These would be domains in which our nation's best cybersecurity defenses could be both lawful and effective. Obviously, this would need to be done in a very transparent manner and subject to strict oversight. But we as a country have impressive capabilities in this area, and we need to make sure that those impressive capabilities protect our critical infrastructure as soon as possible. They are not deployed to protect critical infrastructure now. Fifth, countries around the world, including countries that dedicate significant resources to exploiting our cyber vulnerabilities, are working hard to build their cyber workforces, and we must not fall behind. This means enabling our colleges and universities, in partnership with private companies, government agencies, and other cybersecurity innovators, to research the next great cybersecurity technology and to build the cyber human capital our nation needs to defend itself and continue to flourish on the Internet. Academic and technological leaders in my home state, such as the University of Rhode Island and Brown University, have been hard at work developing new cybersecurity technologies and strengthening our nation's cyber expertise. And I look forward to working with them as we go forward. There are other vital issues that we must address, many of which I've spoken about previously on this floor. We must work, for example, to scale up our nation's cybersecurity and law enforcement resources to match the seriousness of the threat posed by cyber criminals, by terrorist organizations, and by hostile nation states using cyberspace to attack our nation. The bottom line is that we have a lot of important work to do. I'm glad that there is every indication that it will be bipartisan work, undertaken with the country's best interests in mind. I look forward to taking on this task with my colleagues in the months ahead, and I yield the floor. You ready to go?
The senator from Rhode Island.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate now proceed to the consideration of Senate Resolution 209, which was submitted earlier today.
The clerk will report.
Senate Resolution 209, congratulating the Dallas Mavericks on winning the 2011 National Basketball Association Championship.
Is there objection to proceeding to the measure? Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and the motion to reconsider be laid upon the table.
Without objection.
I now ask unanimous consent, with considerable happiness and pride, that the Senate now proceed to the consideration of Senate Resolution 210, celebrating the Boston Bruins victory, which was submitted earlier today.
The clerk will report.
Senate Resolution 210, congratulating the Boston Bruins for winning the 2011 Stanley Cup Championship.
Is there objection to proceeding to the measure? Without objection, then.
Mr. President, it would be unimaginable there could be objection to such good news. I now ask unanimous consent that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and the motion to reconsider be laid upon the table.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business today at recess until 2:00 p.m. on Monday, June 20th, that following the prayer and pledge, the Journal of Proceedings be approved to date, the time for the two leaders be reserved for their use later in the day, that following any leader remarks, the Senate be in a period of morning business until 5:00 p.m. with senators permitted therein for up to 10 minutes each, and that the filing deadline for first-degree amendments to S-782, the Economic Development Act, be 3:30 p.m. on Monday, June 20th.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I am advised that there will be no roll call votes on Monday. The next roll call vote will begin at approximately noon on Tuesday, June 21st, on confirmation of the Simon nomination. Mr. President, if there is no further business to come before the Senate, I ask that it recess under the previous order.
The Senate stands in recess until Monday at 2 p.m.
The Senate's gambled out, but earlier today, members continued work on an economic development bill